Well, hello, friend. It is Steve Pederson here of Daily Christian Affirmations, and I just thought with everything that's going on in the world right now, I wanted to share a couple of resources that may be of some help to you or maybe somebody that you know. The first thing is a song of mine called Hope and Faith, and because I have it on another YouTube channel, I can't feature it in this video, but I'll put a link to it in the description. The song is Hope and Faith. And then the second thing is this sermon that I've preached just this past Sunday called An Ever-Present Help in Trouble. It's based on Psalm 46, verses 1 and 2. Like I said, I hope one of these resources can be a blessing and a help to you or somebody that you know. Enjoy. We've got just one of my more favorite scriptures in the entire Bible today. This is Psalm chapter 46, verses 1 and 2. And I think for me, it particularly became more poignant as this whole COVID-19 thing and pandemic struck. But we have this verse, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Why do we need this scripture right now? I think it's pretty evident that we live in a world of challenges, fears, uncertainties, and things just giving way and crumbling. Devastating natural disasters. We've prayed about them. We've talked about them already. This past week, I think it was floods in Tennessee. Landslides, fires out west, earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, you name it, they are happening. This is a picture that my daughter drew. This is actually from one of the Bible Project videos. Are you guys familiar with the Bible Project? It's absolutely fascinating. It's a series of videos. And I knew I couldn't take a picture because I knew that would be illegal to, put one of their things up. So I thought I'll just have my daughter draw a picture of it. So this is her rendition. And what we have here is, if you remember in the beginning in Genesis, it talked about God separating the waters. So above, we have the waters above, and that's the sky with the sun, the moon, the stars, and then the waters below. And from what I understand, they say in the ancient world, what they believed is that the earth was supported in the ocean with pillars. Now, I don't know what the pillars were built on, but that's what they believed, that the earth was supported by these pillars. And so you can understand a very real fear from our verse, though the mountains, fall into the heart of the sea. It was, of course, a metaphor for us, but it sometimes is also a very real fear that your world might be swept away. There was a man who lost his twin boys in the flood, just swept away. These are troubles. We also have socioeconomic and political crises. Obviously, we've heard of all of these this week with all the trouble in Afghanistan, wars, government takeovers, evacuations, refugee crisis, of course the pandemic, riots, crime in our own neighborhoods. When the earth, in this verse, it talks about though the earth give way. Now that could be sort of a metaphor, it could be the actual earth giving way, or it could just be the earth, meaning the inhabitants of the earth, that's you and me and all the peoples of the earth, giving way to fear. Though the earth give way, or the mountains. Have you guys ever seen a graph of the stock markets? How it's kind of like up and down, up and down. What does that look like? It looks like mountains. It looks like, so you imagine these mountains of the stock market falling into the heart of the sea. That strikes fear into a lot of people. I remember specifically on 9/11, on the day that it happened, what kind of blew me away was almost immediately after this tragedy happened, what were they talking about? The stock market. how this affected the stock market. I'm like, who cares about the stock market? We just lost thousands of people. We also have our home, health, and spiritual battles to deal with, feeling overwhelmed by day-to-day life, questions, doubts, and fears about the future. Maybe you've got bills that are overwhelming. Health issues, whether they be chronic or acute. Those health issues of yourself or maybe your loved ones. We have emotional and mental wellness to deal with. Temptations. We might be tempted to ask, where is God in all of this? Well, here's where God is. Isaiah said of Jesus that he would bear our burdens. Paul said that he was tempted in every way as we are. The gospel writers call him Emmanuel, or God with us. This is what it looked like for God to be with us. As a baby, the king wanted him dead, and so he killed all the boys roughly his age, and so his family had to flee. When he was a preteen, his family left him behind at Jerusalem. Have you ever done that? Maybe the parents drive separately and they both go home like, I thought you had him. Oh, we left him at the conference. Oh my gosh. Panic. When he started his ministry, he was tempted with abuse of power and even with an attempt of suicide, like the devil tempted him to throw himself off the top of the building. Those are troubling times. After preaching a sermon, the people of the synagogue wanted to throw him off a cliff. Now, can you imagine a congregation having such a reaction to a pastor because they didn't like his preaching, that they would want to drive him out of town or throw him off a cliff? That's what Jesus had to deal with. He lost his cousin, John the Baptist, to a brutal murder. He spent all night in prayer about who he would choose as his 12 disciples, only for them to turn out to be a very difficult bunch to deal with. He was in life-threatening storms at the sea, constantly challenged by the religious and political establishment. He received further death threats from the king as an adult. And of course, we see Jesus in the garden. We see him in front of the Sanhedrin. We see him on the cross. These are the kinds of things. So where is God in all of this? He's right there with us, suffering through whatever it is, and he's suffering with us. This is a picture of me. This is not Jesus when he was a boy. This is this is me. They didn't have color photography back then. We used to go fishing all the time. A couple of northerns there that I had caught. Very proud of that. I think I was maybe about 10 years old at the time. I didn't know what was about to come in my life. When I was that age, I was really into baseball. I really believed that baseball was going to be my career. I was super passionate about it. I told my Mom, I know John Henry was born with a hammer in his hand, but I was born with a baseball bat in my hand. That's what I would say. And then I got the news that I had a heart murmur, and the doctor said I had to cease and desist all physical activity, and I was crushed. I remember literally running for my life through the projects because I thought someone was going to kill me. I've had those really nasty breakups. I lost my dad suddenly when he was still fairly young. I've been told that I wasn't welcome to come back into a particular community that was very, very important to me. I was fired from a job on the day that I was going to go purchase an engagement ring. But God has been an ever-present help in the troubles of my life. And fortunately, those types of things don't happen on a daily basis. But that doesn't mean that we don't need God or God's presence in our life on a daily basis. It's not only when the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, but moment by moment, like When you're being tempted to cheat on your taxes, for example, or maybe be slightly dishonest about where you've been or what you've been looking at on the computer, or those times that you're feeling lonely and depressed, or like nobody cares about you or your cause, or that your dreams will never come true. Or maybe it's your first day at school or your first day on the job. Where is God in those moments? He's right there, right here, and he's right now. And it takes trust because we can't see that. We can't stand on him. We can't, God is spirit. God is conceptual. It's not something we can stand on or spend. We can't spend, God like we can spend money. We can't drink God like we can drink a nice, cool, refreshing beverage, but he's there. And he understands that is a challenge to trust that. In Acts chapter 17, Paul is speaking to the people of Athens about God determining the times and places that they should live. And he said, God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. Now, anybody who's had a Zoom meeting with me, this is what I look like on Zoom. Always cheerful. But if it's the first time, people always say, wow, you've got a lot of guitars. Yes, I'm surrounded by guitars. I have guitars everywhere I go. If I go to my mom's house in Minnesota, I have a guitar there, just so I'm not without a guitar. I have a guitar at my in-laws, so in case we go there and visit, I have a guitar everywhere. Except there's no guitar here. Guitar is my security blanket. I need one. Maybe I should just bring one, not play. You guys, when are you going to play your guitar? It's just my security blanket. But my guitars are not far from me. I like to think that my guitars are an ever-present help in trouble. But I have to be the one that reaches out and picks them up and plays them. They're not going to play themselves. I have to take that leap of faith that despite my imperfections as a musician, that I can still create great music if I just pick up my guitar. As I am surrounded by my guitars, we are all surrounded by God's presence. And this photo, I believe, is a testament that despite all those challenges that I spoke about recently, that God was present in my life. Not sure if you've ever heard of Brother Lawrence. Brother Lawrence was a 17th century French brother in the Carmelite monastery in Paris. And his job, anybody know what his job was?
Playing guitar.
Playing guitar. I love it. His job was to wash dishes. It doesn't sound terribly impressive. Like if you were saying to somebody, yeah, what do you do? You meet somebody at a networking event. I'm a dishwasher. Oh, okay, so you're obviously here at this networking event to kind of step up, probably want to up your game, huh? No. I'm fine being a dishwasher. Well, his conversations with and letters to Nicholas Herman of Lorraine, I'm not sure if anybody knows who that was. Maybe he was a great guitar player, I'm not sure. They make up this famous book called The Practice of the Presence of God. It's a tiny little book. It's super thin. It's 63 pages, very small size, and yet very powerful, very impacting. One of the things that he says is that the time of business, said he, does not with me differ from the time of prayer. And in the noise and clatter of my kitchen, while several persons are at the same time calling for different things, I possess God in as great tranquility as if I were upon my knees at the Blessed Sacrament. You can almost picture, anybody watch Downton Abbey? Well, that's what I think of, like all these servants, they're in the kitchen, doing their work. Oh, we need this. Oh, we need that. Oh, can you run here and do, that was Brother Lawrence. He was in that situation, constantly demands, and yet he, in the midst of all of that, he could say, I was tranquil because I was aware of God's presence with me. He learned to be present with God, and that's a skill that he mastered and that we can master as well. I consider him an early mindfulness practitioner, ever mindful that God is present. He knew the secret. Here's the secret. The secret is that the problem is not with God being present. The problem is with us being present. God is always present in the moment. The problem is we are not always present in the moment. It's easy to forget that God is there. The question we can ask ourselves is, what attitude do we think God has toward us? If we think that God is mean and petty and vengeful, we're not going to be likely to approach him or want to be present with him. Sometimes we think we've screwed up so bad that God could never forgive us, or that he's sort of waiting, cross-armed, scowling, to see if we will beg for mercy. And then maybe, just maybe, he'll reluctantly give us a second chance to prove ourselves. However, the author of the book of Hebrews said that we can approach the throne of grace with confidence. God is an ever-present help, not an ever-present accuser or taskmaster. In his address on the 10th anniversary of the tragedies of September 11th, Rev Derek Hawkins said, Psalm 46 is a strong biblical passage that reminds us that even in the face of trouble, God is our refuge and strength. The Bible doesn't talk about the absence of calamity, but God promises his presence in trying times. September 11th was not the first, and sadly, it will not be the last time we will see inhuman acts. But we always can depend on God's presence when tragedy strikes. In his text, Hawkins quoted from the writing on the walls inside the Auschwitz concentration camp that said, I believe in the sun even when it is not shining. I believe in love even when I'm not alone, or even when I'm alone. I believe in God even when he is silent. Even in the midst of tragic circumstances, God is still present, even when it's hard to see or perceive him. End quote. Remember, our verse for today is God is our refuge and strength, but he can be my refuge and strength. You can say, God is my refuge and strength. The psalm says, we will not fear, but you can also say, I will not fear. And I love what William did earlier. He talked about taking a deep breath. We can have a mantra where on our in-breath we say, God is my refuge and strength, and on the out-breath, an ever-present help in trouble. God is my refuge and strength, and ever-present help in trouble. What a wonderful mantra. Where is God in our lives? He is an ever-present help in the troubles and in the good times as well. Let's be sure to be present as well and to reach out to him. God bless.